Robert Mitchell had forgotten what it felt like to be surprised by life. At 58 years old, he'd built an empire in commercial real estate. He owned 3 homes, drove cars that cost more than most people's houses, and wore suits tailored in Milan. Success had been good to him, but somewhere along the way, it had also made him cynical. On this particular Tuesday morning in Manhattan, Robert was running late for a meeting that could cost him millions. His black Rolls-Royce had started making an ominous, grinding sound 3 blocks from his destination. Now it sat stalled on Fifth Avenue, hood up, engine smoking slightly in the autumn air. Robert stood on the sidewalk, phone pressed to his ear, speaking curtly to his assistant. "I don't care if you have to helicopter someone in, Margaret. I need this car fixed in the next 20 minutes. His 3 business associates clustered nearby, checking their watches, their own phones. They were all cut from the same cloth as Robert. Successful, impatient, used to problems being solved with a phone call and a credit card. That's when a small voice spoke up from behind them. "I can fix this." Robert turned to see a boy, maybe 12 or 13 years old, standing on the sidewalk. The child was small for his age, with gentle brown eyes and worn clothes that had clearly seen better days. His shirt was too large, his jeans were frayed at the cuffs, and his sneakers were held together with duct tape. He stood on a small wooden crate, which he'd apparently been using to reach something. The boy's face was earnest, hopeful even, as he looked at the expensive car with its hood raised, like a mechanical beast in distress. Robert's associates began to chuckle. Then the laughter grew louder. "Did you hear that?" said James, one of Robert's oldest friends. "The kid thinks he can fix a Rolls-Royce." "That's adorable," added Marcus, barely concealing his condescension. "Son, this isn't a bicycle. This car is worth more than most things." But the boy didn't flinch. He simply looked at Robert directly and repeated quietly, "I can fix this. I've been watching YouTube videos about engines for 2 years. I work at Mr. Patterson's garage after school. I know what that sound means." Robert felt his jaw tighten. He was about to wave the boy away, to return to his phone call when something made him pause. Maybe it was the complete absence of doubt in the boy's eyes. Maybe it was a memory, faint but persistent, of being young and dismissed by adults who thought they knew better. "What's your name?" Robert asked, surprising himself. "Danny, sir. Danny Reeves." "And you think you know what's wrong with my car, Danny?" "Yes, sir. It's the serpentine belt. I heard it before the engine stopped. The grinding sound, then that little squeal, that's the belt shredding. Probably got oil on it or just wore out. It's actually an easy fix if you have the right belt." The associates laughed again, but this time Robert held up his hand for silence. "And I suppose you just happen to have the right belt?" Robert's tone was skeptical but curious. Danny shook his head. "No, sir. But there's an auto parts store 2 blocks that way. They'd have it. And I have my tools." He patted a small, battered toolkit at his feet that Robert hadn't noticed before. Robert studied the boy's face. There was no arrogance there, no bravado, just a quiet confidence born from knowledge and experience. It reminded Robert of his own father, a mechanic who'd worked his way through life with calloused hands and an unshakable belief that any problem could be solved if you understood it well enough. "How much?" Robert asked. "Sir? How much would you charge to fix it?" Danny looked uncomfortable. I don't know. Whatever you think is fair." Something in Robert's chest shifted slightly. "Tell you what. You fix my car in 20 minutes, I'll give you $500. The boy's eyes went wide. The associates fell silent, exchanging glances. $500 to a kid who looked like he hadn't had a new pair of shoes in years? "But," Robert continued, "if you can't fix it, you don't get anything. And you don't waste more than 20 minutes of my time. Deal?" Danny nodded, his expression serious as a handshake. "Deal." Robert glanced at his watch. "Starting now." What happened next was something Robert Mitchell would remember for the rest of his life. Danny grabbed his toolkit, pushed his wooden crate next to the car, and climbed up to peer into the engine compartment. His small hands moved with surprising confidence, touching, testing, tracing lines of mechanical connection that Robert couldn't begin to understand. "Just like I thought," Danny said after 30 seconds. "Serpentine belt's shredded, see?" He pointed to a twisted piece of rubber hanging loose. "The good news is nothing else is damaged. I just need the replacement." He hopped down, pulled a small notebook from his back pocket, and quickly wrote down a part number. "Mr. Mitchell, sir, could someone run to Morrison's Auto Parts? It's the red building 2 blocks south. They know me there. Just tell them Danny needs this belt for a late model Rolls." Robert gestured to James. "Go!" While they waited, Danny didn't waste time. He began carefully removing the damaged belt, explaining each step as he went, not talking down to anyone but sharing his knowledge like a teacher with eager students. See, most people think luxury cars are too complicated to fix. But really, they're just cars. The principles are the same. My dad taught me that before he passed away. Danny's voice caught slightly, but he kept working. He said every machine is just trying to do its job. You just have to listen to what it's telling you. Robert felt something unfamiliar: humility. Here was this child who had every reason to be bitter about his circumstances, speaking with such patience and passion about his craft. James returned with the belt in 8 minutes. Danny took it, thanked him politely, and went to work. His small fingers moved with practiced precision. He threaded the new belt through the pulleys, adjusted the tension, double-checked his work. At one point, he paused, closed his eyes, and seemed to be visualizing something. Then he made a tiny adjustment that Robert barely saw. "Okay," Danny said, climbing down after 18 minutes. "Try starting it now." Robert slid into the driver's seat, turned the key, and the Rolls-Royce purred to life like nothing had ever been wrong. The grinding was gone. The engine ran smooth as silk. The associates burst into applause. Even they, cynical as they were, recognized they'd witnessed something special. Robert stepped out of the car and pulled his wallet from his jacket. He counted out $500 in bills and handed them to Danny. The boy took the money with shaking hands, his eyes glistening. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. This will help my mom with the rent and—" "Wait," Robert said. He pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. "This is my personal number. I want you to call me tomorrow evening. Can you do that?" Danny nodded, confused but hopeful. "Good." Robert paused, feeling emotions he hadn't allowed himself in years. "Danny, do you know why I'm giving you my number?" "No, sir." "Because I spent 30 years building my business, and I forgot something important along the way. I forgot that value isn't measured in the cost of things. It's measured in the quality of character. You have something rare, son. You have skill and humility together. That's worth more than this car, more than any of my buildings." Robert glanced at his associates, who were listening in silent surprise. "I started out like you," Robert continued, his voice softer now. "My father was a mechanic. Worked himself to the bone to give me opportunities. Somewhere along the way, I started thinking that success meant leaving that world behind, looking down on it even. But you reminded me today that honest work, done with integrity and knowledge, is the highest calling there is." Danny didn't say anything. He just listened, taking in these words like water after a long drought. "When you call me tomorrow," Robert said, "we're going to talk about your future. I know some people who run technical schools, scholarship programs. You shouldn't be working after school to help with rent. You should be learning, growing, preparing for a future where you can use these gifts properly. But my mom needs—" "Your mother will be taken care of," Robert said firmly. "I'm going to make sure of that. You just focus on being a kid and getting an education. Deal?" Danny's face crumpled with emotion. He nodded, unable to speak. Robert did something then that surprised everyone, including himself. He reached out and pulled the boy into a brief, firm embrace. "Thank you, Danny," he whispered. "You fixed more than my car today." That evening, Robert called his wife Ellen from the office. He told her the whole story, his voice thick with emotion he hadn't felt in years. "I've been so focused on winning, on accumulating, on proving I'm better than everyone else," he said. "I forgot what my own father tried to teach me. I forgot about grace." Ellen was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "So what are you going to do?" "I'm going to help this boy. Really help him, not just throw money at the problem. I'm going to make sure he gets every opportunity I had and more." "And Ellen?" "I think I'm going to start doing things differently. All of this wealth, this success. What's it worth if I'm not using it to lift others up?" True to his word, Robert called Danny the next evening. Within 2 weeks, he'd arranged for Danny's mother to receive a job at one of his property management companies with better pay and benefits than she'd ever had. He set up an education fund for Danny that would carry him through high school. trade school or college, whatever path he chose. But more than that, Robert began mentoring Danny. Once a week, they'd meet for dinner. Robert would share business wisdom, life lessons, stories from his own journey. Danny would share his dreams, his fears, his insights about mechanics and engineering. Their friendship became one of the most important relationships in Robert's life. It reminded him week after week that wisdom isn't the exclusive domain of the wealthy and successful. Sometimes the greatest teachers come in the smallest packages. Wearing worn-out sneakers and carrying battered toolkits. 3 years later, Robert attended Danny's high school graduation. The boy had blossomed into a confident young man, earning a full scholarship to MIT's engineering program. As Danny walked across that stage, Robert felt tears streaming down his face. His wife squeezed his hand. "You changed his life," she whispered. Robert shook his head. "No, he changed mine." And it was true. That day on Fifth Avenue, when a small boy with a giant heart said, "I can fix this," he'd fixed far more than a broken belt on an expensive car. He'd fixed something broken in a millionaire's soul. Something Robert hadn't even known needed repair. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come from the most unexpected teachers. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, being wrong is the first step toward becoming right again.